This is the Arcomed VP7000 volumetric pump. It's designed to run on mains power, and the cleaning materials are 70% alcohol wipes. If you are using any other cleaning materials, please wipe down afterwards with a damp cloth.
A normal infusion.
The volumetric pump takes three main types of giving sets. We have the normal giving set with the orange clamp, and inside the drip chamber there is a filter that is 15 microns. The normal giving set comes in both PVC and polypropylene. We have the blood giving set with the red clamp, and this has a 200 micron filter. When you're giving blood, please ensure that you fill the chamber up to the top of the filter. And then we have the light protective giving set, which is the same as the normal giving set, except orange in colour. Again, these come in PVC and polypropylene. The on-off button is just here, so we can switch this on. We have a range of up and down arrow buttons, and we have a rate window and a data window. When we have primed the giving set, we open up the door using one of these two levers here. So I just bring this forward and we open up the door. Inside the chamber, you can see we have various sensors. I have an upstream occlusion sensor, a downstream occlusion sensor, and then we have our air inline sensor. We have a picture of the Robson clamp. This is where the Robson clamp will go, and the round device opens and closes the clamp. Inside, we also have the peristaltic motion. So if you rub your fingers over the black portion here, you can feel the fingers that provide the peristaltic motion. On this note, the maximum rate of the pump is 999 mils per hour. Once you have primed your line, make sure both of your clamps are closed, and then we can put the giving set into the chamber, which I shall do now. So the clamp goes where the picture of the clamp is. It cannot go the wrong way around, and it has to be closed. It can't be open. And then we simply load the two sides of the giving set into these inset grooves here. Once we've done this, we can simply close the door and close the clamp. The pump will do a flow test. And if the flow test is successful, then we're ready to run the pump. Once we have the giving set loaded, we can then simply put in our rate and volume and press start. So we use your up and down arrows to put in our rate. If I want to put in 125 mils an hour for our 8-hour bag, I can go 125. We could have 0.1 mils there. And then in our data window, we put in our volume to be infused. So in this case, it would be 1000 mils. So I go to my thousands, that's 1000, that's 1100, 1110, 1111, and so on. But I'm going to use my down arrows to get rid of those ones, and then we can just leave it at 1000 mils. So our rate of 125, our volume to be infused of 1000 mils. Check on the screen that it's correct. So it's VTBI is 1000 mils, 125 mils per hour. And down at the bottom, it's telling me it's going to take 8 hours to give this particular infusion. Once we've put in our rate and our volume, we simply go start. We have 3 indicators indicating that we are running. So we have a dripping drip, we have a flashing drip, and we have these dots moving across on our LCD displays. You can see the volume that has been infused here. And if I click onto the drip, we have more information. So we have our rate, infused, accumulated, and remaining. If you find yourself in any screen you don't want to be in, we simply press on escape and we're back to our monitoring screen. It will retain the information if we just put this pump into standby. So if to put this into standby, we simply press once on the on-off key. You can put in a time for it to automatically come out of standby by using your up and down keys. So there we have now 10 minutes and it will automatically come out of standby, or I can leave it on 0 and it will stay on standby infinitely. If I press on my on-off key again, you'll see that we've retained the information. So we're still running at 125 mils per hour. However, if I want to zero everything and put everything back to default, we can just simply turn off by pressing and holding on our on-off key. So it powers down, and then when you turn it back on again, everything is back to 0. The second way you can put in your infusion is using time over volume. And this is where this TOV key comes in. So I can use that one, or I can go into my menu and we can use the TOV here. So this time, I'm going to put in my hours here and my volume to be infused. So again, using the 8-hour bag example, we can put in 1000 mils here, and then we simply put in 8 hours using our up arrow. So there's 8 hours and 0 minutes. If it was 8 hours and 30 minutes, I could put in 8 hours and 30 minutes like so. But we'll get rid of that using our down arrow. So it's now 8 hours, 1000 mils. Check on the screen that it's correct. So it's 8 hours, 1000 mils and 125 mils per hour. So it works out the rate for you. If you're happy with that, we simply press select, which is your number 2 key. Check again on your screen that it's all correct, and then we simply press on start. You'll notice at the bottom the TOV becomes a bolus key. This is a medication bolus, not a fluid challenge. So if I was giving a propofol infusion to sedate an intensive care patient and I want to give a 2 ml bolus, this is where I would go. So I can simply go onto my bolus key. I've got 2 options. I can give a rough bolus of, say, 2 mils by pressing and holding on the number 2 key, and you can see on the screen when I press and hold how many mils is being given. And when I lift my finger off the number 2 key, then it stops giving the bolus and goes back to the original infusion rate. The second way of giving a bolus is I can put in an exact volume. You'll see here that it's running at 999 mils per hour. So I can actually bring that rate down if I want to say 799 mils per hour. But I want to set an exact volume. So here you can see it says press 1 to set your volume. So press your number 1. Anything that flashes is where you can change things. So I'm going to put in 2.0 mils as my bolus, and then simply press your number 2, and it will give an exact bolus of 2 mils, and then return to the original rate. When I press stop, the bolus key disappears and becomes a time over volume. But you'll notice in the menu, I still have a bolus key. So this comes in useful if you have air in line alarms. To flush out the bubbles, you would need to disconnect the patient, and then we can simply press on our bolus, and it asks me to disconnect my patient, and the same again, I press on my number 2 key and press and hold to flush out the air bubbles. And once the air bubbles have reached the end of my giving set, I can reconnect my patient and then go back to my original infusion. In the main menu, we have information again, so I can press on my eye. It gives me some information about my pump. If I press I again, we get our infused, accumulated, remaining, and rate. If I press on I again, we get our history and all of our button presses and alarms, and I can scroll down to check out the rest of the history. If I press on information again, we have a flow history, and here, this little spike here is an occlusion alarm. And if I press on information again, we have the pump manual. To come out of the pump manual, I can simply tick. You'll notice at the bottom we have a pressure dial. So this is telling me how much pressure is on the vein of the patient and also in the giving set. If I squeeze the giving set, you will see the pressure rising at the bottom there. And there is a pressure alarm, which causes an occlusion. I can silence my alarm by pressing on the number 2 on my silence key, sorting out the problem, and then we can start again. If I leave the pump stopped for more than 2 minutes, it will alarm again. If I want to change my occlusion alarm limit, I can simply press on the dial. You can see here the occlusion alarm limit is 600 millimeters of mercury. I can bring that down, say to 200 if somebody has quite delicate veins, and press on the number 2 key. Now, if there is an occlusion of more than 200 millimeters of mercury, then the pump will alarm. If I go to main menu, we've talked about time over volume, we've talked about bolus and prime, we've talked about occlusion limit. I can zero the volume, so if we've reached the end of a bag, I can simply zero my volume. So in this case, I've given 11.5 mils. I can simply press on my number 2 to 0, and now my infused volume is 0, and we're back at 8 hours. If I go back to my information by pressing on the drip, you'll see here that I have infused very little, but with the accumulated volume, it's telling me I've accumulated 12 mils. Press escape to come back out of the screen. Once we've finished our infusion, we can press on stop, unload the set by opening up the door. We can simply take out the set, close the pump, and switch off. So we can press and hold to power down.